Started over.
Reddit user Deistchristian. I don't know how long the battery on my laptop will last, but I have to try and explain to you what's happened to me. At very least for my own sanity. There's no Wi-Fi, but as soon as it gets back, if it gets back to proper civilization, this email should still send, as long as I'm stuck in this traffic jam that seems like it will never end. I know you think you know how this feels, but something is seriously wrong this time. Let me start from the beginning. It was Friday when I left work. I was actually looking forward to my long drive home. On a good day, it still takes 40 minutes before I see my apartment's front gate. But even tired after a long day crunching numbers, I was looking forward to having dinner with you. I also appreciated my relatively quiet trek with just classic rock DJ for company. However, things went wrong almost immediately. I turned into a sea of red lights when I reached the road that fed into the main highway. Construction blocked all but one lane. I cursed under my breath, but this wasn't unusual. I was mostly upset that I hadn't checked for traffic before heading out. So I sat there, not much else to do. I didn't even put my foot on the gas, just to take it off the brake every now and then.
Oh, sorry.
At least there was some progress. I could still remember the nightmare after the last hurricane hit town. I tried to use the parking lots I had experienced then to keep perspective now, and it worked. Soon I found myself speeding up as I entered the construction zone. Even better, the next was green before I hit and breezed right through and up the ramp to the highway. Unfortunately, my newfound good mood was ruined as an upcoming truck failed to slow down and nearly smashed into me. I hit the brakes and the horn hard enough that my wrist hurt. The blue truck blared a train horn in response, and the driver actually pulled up in the next lane, slowed down, all to just give me the finger through our windows. He was quite possibly the ugliest man I had ever seen. Long, oily black hair framed a wide face with wild, bulging eyes, a bulbous nose. A thick black beard obscured even his mouth, and dirt seemed smeared all over his face, hands, and the blue overalls he was wearing. I shuddered and turned away. He wasn't worth yelling at or even returning the rude gesture. Instead, I tried to focus on the road ahead. Already, traffic was getting thicker. I mentally estimated this trick would take an hour today.
I love hearing Salty say
I turned
thicker.
up the radio just as my favorite song was coming on. I was happy that anything was finally going my way. I was too busy jamming to notice that the more cars were surrounding me by the minute, and we were getting slower and slower. But then, that darn truck swerving into my lane just because I was nice enough not to tailgate. I resisted the urge to honk my horn this time. I really didn't want another face-to-face with that horrible man. I tried to turn the music on louder, but there was no ignoring the traffic now. It was becoming a real stop-and-go jam. So I changed the station to the local news and waited patiently for the traffic update. When they finally got to the point, the reporter mentioned a car fire on an unrelated road and a wreck in an upcoming lane, but they just offhandedly mentioned my side was running a little slow. I thought this meant whatever happened was recent and not even in the news yet. Either way, I knew that I was in for a long haul now. I switched back to the music and tried my best to ignore my growling stomach. Like most days, I had worked through lunch. I made up for it with big dinners, but my kitchen was still very far away. I dug around my center console and found a few pieces of hard candy still wrapped. It was better than nothing, so I sucked away at them while occasionally moving. I'm not proud to admit, but I zoned out while dancing in my seat. It was a coping mechanism. This helped, and I managed to cover several miles, even going as slow as we all were, without really paying attention. I didn't start again until my eyes happened to catch the clock. I had been driving for an hour already. Minutes. An hour? This had to be the result of a massive accident. I craned my head around, looked for helicopters. Nothing was in sight. After switching back to the news, waiting for an update, they still didn't mention anything major about the road I was on. I couldn't believe how little progress we made, but this was when I realized I wasn't sure exactly where I was. We were in between road signs, and I couldn't see any recognizable landmarks on either side of the elevated road, just trees. It was getting darker, and we were moving forward. Otherwise, I might have actually worried about getting caught in a short time loop. Essentially, life wouldn't change for me much. I continually mainly pressed the brake and occasionally letting my foot up, but traffic seemed even slower than when I first zoned out. I grabbed my phone and tried to call you. Not only did I desperately need the company, I trusted you would be more accurately able to pinpoint why I was going so slow, but the phone just rang and rang. It never even went to voicemail. I promised I would have left one if I could. Instead, I pulled into the outer lane and resolved to use the next exit lane. I could find a fast food place and wait this whole mess out in comfort, but I didn't see an upcoming exit, or even a sign for one. I just kept inching forward, while getting hungrier, grumpier, and angrier.
Reminds me of
That's
me.
when I saw the stupid blue truck come up fast in the shoulder lane. He clipped my mirror as he passed. This time I honked, loud, long, and impotently, as it turned out. The blue truck didn't even slow down and was soon out of sight. Enraged, I threw my phone at the center console, slamming my hands against my armrests. Tears of frustration threatened to fall, but my emotions soon turned to regret, as I realized both my phone and radio had been broken during the fit of rage.
Damn.
No more music, no more
How mad was
hope
he?
of outside contact.
Oh, you're gonna start
Not
going
without rolling
crazy.
down my window at least. At this thought, I looked over and really began to notice people driving around me for the first time. At first, I thought it was just a window tint, but everyone had gray skin, lifeless eyes, in the same exact position of their hands, at 9:03 in the steering wheel. I kept moving. Was this some kind of prank? Did I die earlier on this trip?
10 and 2,
Whatever was
motherfucker.
going on, I couldn't stop myself from following the rules of the road. I drove in silence several more miles. I didn't know what to do next, but I couldn't deny I was
gonna end
facing
up
some
like
kind
one
of
of these gray
supernatural
people.
threat.
Damn.
Now that I was paying closer attention, the continued lack of road signs and exits made this road as alien to me as if I was driving on another planet. Feeling a little braver, I experimented. First I stopped driving, the other cars just went around me. No one honked or called me a slur as they passed. Then I tried reversing, in response the other cars behind me, and in front, stopped and formed an impassable roadblock. Finally I threw caution into the wind and sped up as fast as I could with the little space I had. I hit the car ahead of me while going just 10 miles.
I prefer only
There
new
was a
and
jolt,
salty.
and the front of the car crumpled little. There was zero damage to the other car, and it didn't even move an inch.
What?
The driver I hit never looked back.
Get out and start
I
fighting him.
pulled a blue truck and found myself flying down the shoulder as fast as I could manage. I began to see his last actions in a new light. Could he be in the same boat as me and realize it sooner? As far as I could tell, we weren't repeating the same stretch of road. We were moving forward, but I had no clue where to. As I sped up, the drivers and the other cars began to look more and more monstrous in my peripheral vision. The optical illusion made their faces appear to elongate and gain extra features like 6 eyes and multiple mouths.
What the fuck?
My curiosity got the better of me, and I finally glanced over at all the cars whizzing past more carefully. My eyes were off the road for just a split second, but I could see the car I passed in that time with perfect detail. There was no optical illusion. The driver was still gray-skinned, but with a long, upside-down, tear-shaped head. He had just 2 eyes, but they were the size of fists and located on the sides.
What? He's a fucking
He
hammerhead.
had just had 2 nostrils inside of a full nose, and his face ended with a tiny, dripping,
It's
lipless
got that
mouth.
Voldemort.
It is.
His fingers were curled around the steering wheel multiple times, like a fistful of snakes.
What the fuck?
I might have screamed, but not for long. I slammed on the brakes even before noticing the blue truck in front of me. Maybe I had earned a sixth sense about things like this from traffic jams I endured in the past, but I barely stopped with just a foot to spare. Automatically, I signaled into a lane next to me. To my surprise, the car behind slowed to a stop to let me in. I was acutely aware every driver now was a grotesque mockery of human life, except one, I hoped. To meet him properly, I entered the outer lane and drove up beside him with my window rolled down. To my horror, I found the driver had not stopped voluntarily. His truck had looked normal from behind. From the side, it was half as long as it used to be. I hadn't noticed a tree until now, but a thick black trunk had grown up through the pavement. Far above us, the tree looked similar to a perfect pine tree, but with every leaf red.
Damn.
The traffic stopped completely as my window lined up with what was left of his. It took me some time to realize his head was actually partially outside the vehicle, only recognizable by the strands of oily black hair on top. Still, I found
Oh.
myself unable to look away. I was
Black
stuck
bearded
there for
fella.
ages, watching red paste drip until the traffic finally moved on. That was 2 days ago. Since then, I've learned much about this world I'm in now. Days and nights are exactly 13 hours long each. If I get out of my car, so does everyone else, and they slowly start to move near me. I'm not sure when it started, but they all now stare at me all the time. The fuel gauge hasn't moved lower since I started the trip. I still need sleep, but it doesn't seem like anyone else needs to. And those trees are popping up more and more. I'm so
About food.
hungry. I'm not sure if I'm
Oh.
going to last to find out what this has all been for, but I do feel like the end is coming in soon. The trees have blocked the outer lanes entirely, and we've all moved down to just one lane. I've pulled over to write this email. When I'm done, I'll merge back in and keep driving. Until the end either way. But I hope you are okay and you didn't get too mad when I didn't show for dinner. I'm really sorry for multiple reasons that I missed it. But I'm mostly sorry that I missed you, Mom. I love you. Goodbye.
Jesus.
Damn, that was fucking